got my. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to tell you that.
Probably should air some bad news. Okay. I said that this is Delmar's attorney. He's going to air some bad news. Yeah. Well, I was so. I think it's still on there. The one I printed this morning was still on there. And I'm not even talking about it. I'm just going to talk about what we're. Um,
No, we did it for the approval of the energy
Yeah, okay.
Settlement
I
agreement.
knew we had done it for something else. No.
okay. Every docket I have right now, so.
That I knew.
Yeah. Okay. It's so thin that I'm. Okay.
Commissioner Conway, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am.
He'll bring it to order.
It is 1 o'clock. The commission is now on duty. And we have the first thing on the agenda is the January 31st public session and executive sessions of the meeting minutes. Does any commissioner have a change or correction to those minutes? If not, Commissioner Conaway.
Move we adopt the minutes of the January 31st public session.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Would you have any objection to adding the executive session of that, Commissioner Conaway?
I moved.
All right, I will add the executive session also.
Move together.
I will second that also.
Any discussion? Commissioner Correa, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye. Am I
I
on?
vote aye. The motion, yes, you are. The motion carries.
Okay.
The consent agenda, Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Chair Winslow. I'd like to, before I submit an order, a motion to approve the consent agenda, I'd like to suggest one slight change to two orders that are contained within. Order number 10388 and order number 10389. In the enabling order, it says that this order is granting a preliminary certificate to operate a community-owned energy generating facility. And I would like to propose that we add the adjective solar energy generating facility to this order as one edit to both orders. And so with that in mind, and with that edit in mind, I would thereby propose and move that we adopt the consent agenda as noted.
Second the motion.
With respect to that, does any commissioner have any objection to the change in the orders? Any of the authors of the orders have any objections to the change in the orders?
This is Summer Pope on behalf of staff. Staff has no objection. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Just before we vote, I just want to acknowledge that I think this is rather additive and more accurately describes exactly what we are allowing and granting to the applicant. So thank you very much, Commissioners, for your consideration.
Commissioner Correa, how do you vote, sir?
I second it and aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
Commissioner Gray,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Number one, I'm sorry, the public comment. Is there anyone present there today or on the telephone that would like to make a public comment to the Public Service Commission? We will then go to the regular agenda. Number one is in the matter of provision of standard offer supply to retail consumers in the service territory of Delmarva Power and Light Company. And we have with us, I guess, as I assume, we have Jim is there, and we have staff there, and we have proposed order number 10364. So whoever's leading the charge, please start.
Good afternoon, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. Today we have Dr. James Letzelter here from Liberty Consulting Group. Dr. Letzelter is a management consultant with over 30 years experience in the electric power industry. Liberty was retained by the Commission to monitor Delmarva Power's 2024 request for proposals for full requirements supply for its standard offer service that was filed originally in August of 2023. We've held 2 tranches of the auction awarding all blocks. Dr. Letzelter is here today to present the final report to the Commission. The report is linked on the Commission's agenda, and the summary presentation is filed in the docket. At the end of the presentation, staff would respectfully ask that you accept the final report. And with that, Dr. Letzelter, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Pleasure to be here. If I could get the slide displayed, that's actually the written report that's on screen. There it is. Great, thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as Brian mentioned, we recently finished up the second tranche and for the 2024 RFP for Delmarva, and the RFP covered for the year 571 megawatts of load. And I wanted to talk in the summary at least a little bit about the participation and competition. Overall, and most importantly, both were improved. They're adequate from a historical standpoint in terms of participation for the RISC-E and the MGS blocks, but there is still a lingering low participation in the LGS and GSP blocks that should be looked into, and we can talk a bit more about that later on in this presentation. The RFP process was overall run very well and successfully from start to finish, and most importantly, the bids were consistent with the expectations that we had given the regional market conditions. Next slide, please. There were 13 blocks in total. As usual in Tranche 1, the customer classes of RISC-E, MGS, LGS, and GSP had their blocks filled, and then in Tranche 2, there were additional blocks for RISC-E and MGS, and all blocks were filled in Tranche 1 and Tranche 2, and unlike last year, there was not a need for a third tranche. Next slide. This slide shows the weighted average winning bid price for the most recent 2024 procurement versus 2023 for all 4 customer classes. And you can see across the board that prices have come down substantially year over year, both in overall magnitude and percentage change, which is a very positive result. Next slide. And this translates to bill impacts that are estimated to be as follows. In the furthest left or furthest right column is a percent change. To the left of that is the dollar change in monthly bill estimate. And it's important to note that for MGS, LGS, and GSP, those classes will in fact see fairly substantial bill reductions, and that is a direct result of the weighted average winning bid prices from the procurement coming down so much. However, RISC-E will see a slight bill increase, and that's despite the lower bid prices in 2024 versus 2023. And the reason for that is that RISC-E is based on a 2-year delivery period, And the 2024 bid prices, while much lower than 2023, were slightly higher than the 2022 bid prices they replaced. The common year for both of those periods was 2023, where the prices were high. So all things equal, we should see when 2023 rolls off next year, the bills going down from there. Next slide. I mentioned participation was strong, and for Tranche 1, we had 6 bidders. In Tranche 2, we had 7 bidders. This is overall for all 4 classes, and the strong participation was largely in LGS and MGS, but it was not as good as you'll see on the next slide for GSP and LGS. So next slide, 7, please. Thank you. As you can see, other than for LGS and GSP, we had a adequate number of bidders and bids, but we had only one bidder providing one bid for LGS and GSP. It's an area of concern. However, it's worth noting that the price that was bid, that was the winning bid that was accepted back in Tranche 1, was in line with the expectations for the market. So, next slide. Okay. There were 5 bidders that won blocks this year: Axpo, Constellation, DTE, Hartree, and Vitol. And they are, most of these companies have been bidding in Delaware for many years. So on this slide, what I've shown here is a brief history, the last 5 procurements by customer class, what the average winning bid price was for the year. And you can see prices were very low in 2020 and 2021, and they started to peak up in 2022, hitting a peak in 2023 last year, as we know, and they started to drop off a little again in this last procurement in 2024. What's worth noting here is that the dotted line on top of everything is on a separate axis on the right, and that's the price of gas. And it's important to show that there's a strong relationship with power and gas, and power prices are essentially driven by gas prices. They're not independent, so what happens in the gas price is what determines ultimately what happens in the power market. Another thing worth noting is that forward prices from this, literally from today and recent weeks, show that gas prices over the next several years are very low. Gas prices right now are low, spot prices, and the forwards from here on are also fairly low. They'll recover a little bit, but I think it'll be a very positive impact that we will see on future procurements for Delmarva's Power. Next slide. So on this slide, I built a table that shows that there is diversity in the suppliers. And as I mentioned, there were 5 winners this year. That means that there are a total of 6 suppliers, because there was a risky winner last year, who's NextEra, who didn't win this year, but they still have a block that they're serving from last year. So overall, for risky, it's served by 6 different suppliers, very strong. Constellation serves all of the MGS, LGS, and GSP load. Next slide. So in conclusion, the highlights are that the processes went very well. And they included both auctions, resulting in all blocks being filled with prices that were consistent with market conditions. And overall participation was improved for risky and MGS, but for LGS and GSP, it was still quite low. And I feel that that needs to improve for long-term competitiveness in terms of providing SOS service to those classes. And I'm recommending that either commission staff or Delmarva or both address this issue in some capacity to see what could be done to increase competition or mitigate the risks of continued low participation. Now, in addition to those conclusions, I have added an appendix that shows 4 slides, one for energy prices, gas versus power, and then the capacity market, none of which are new to you because I've shown these in both of the tranches, and the actual numbers that you would see in those were presented after after tranche 2. So with that, I will be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners, any questions?
I have a comment. This report is excellent. The comparison of 23 and also a table for 5 years. On page 7, I was so happy and I was smiling when I was reading the figures that the number of bids are like 18 bids, 15 bids, 16 bids. Now, if that many bids are there, that speaks highly of the market, but it equally speaks highly of you and your work. So thank you for a good job for bringing the prices down from this point of view. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Madam Acting Chair, Mr. Ledzelter, this is an excellent presentation. Thank you. Great context, good perspective. I realize that the number of bids is down for LGS and GSP, but as you point out, the prices remain low. Be risky to have, just one bidder, but the price is really sweet. So, if we add more bidders and they bring in the same price, that would be double value. But thanks for your work. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Ledzelter, I thought that reading the report, it was just really well done. And the only question I really have is of Mr. Geller, and that is, what is staff proposing to do with the recommendation made by Dr. Ledzelter?
So staff is respectfully asking the commission to accept Dr. Ledzelter's final report now for the 2024 standard offer service auctions now that we've awarded all of the blocks.
How about the request of Delmarva Power and Light? Is that part of the order? I don't believe so. There's no order, actually.
Yes, that's correct, Chairman. There's no order. I believe staff is just looking for approval of the report.
And Chairman Winslow, I believe Ms. Iori would like to be recognized to make a comment.
Certainly, please.
Hi, thank you, Chairman Winslow. I just had one question. Do you have any thoughts as to why the participation for the LGS and GSP blocks was so low?
Yes, and thank you for the question. That's a good question. There are a couple of things going on, dynamics that cause that low participation. One is that historically, regardless of how many bidders there are, what is now known as Constellation always seems to win. And I'm exaggerating when I say always, but they were hard to beat. And it takes work for suppliers to put together bids, to know their costs, where they can make money and possibly win, and they go through the effort and repeatedly come up with losing bids. So that is one factor. The other factor is that the market in the last couple of years for those customers is very strange in terms of the amount of them who have gone on and off of standard offer service versus third-party suppliers, commonly known as TPS. And that causes a lot of risk for a supplier who expects to serve a certain amount of load, and then things change before their eyes very freely because customers in those classes can come and go. At the same time, it makes the concern over the lack of competition less severe because it is, frankly, easier for large customers that are currently in LGS or GSP customer classes to move to a third-party supplier because they're a more attractive load than, say, an MGS or certainly a risky, our SCI customer, to be clear. And frankly, if they don't like the SOS price, they can vote with their feet. So it's less of a concern, although still a concern. If it was the risky blocks that were not getting filled, it would be a much greater sense of urgency on my behalf to address the issue. But any of these larger companies that don't like it, as they probably shouldn't, like the potential for high prices, can do something about it because there are suppliers that would be happy to serve them.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Madam Acting Chair, Dr. Ledzelter, when you make the recommendation on page 11, the Public Service Commission or Delmarva addressed the issue to increase competition or mitigate the risks. Do we have among the PSC and Delmarva the wherewithal and the know-how how to make that happen, or is that happening through guidance from you, or how do you foresee that moving forward? Because I'd like to recommend that we adopt your report as well as your recommendation.
Right. Well, at this point, I was just suggesting that some ideas be floated around and ultimately some plan for addressing it be made. And I don't know who takes the lead on that from a process standpoint. But generally, between Delmarva's expertise and staff's expertise and mine as your consultant, and especially the expertise that NLX, the platform vendor, has, there's a lot of information there that can be used to get more information from prospective bidders, to find out, even as simply as surveying them, to find out what would make you come back to serve this class and what is keeping you away. And then that's one aspect of it that I mentioned, what can be done to increase the competition. And the other aspect of it, which is a little more difficult, is barring that, what can you do to ensure that, or to mitigate the risks of that? Let's say we, again, have next year Just Constellation, for example, show up, and knowing that they're the only supplier from the last year, assume that that's the case, which they would not know for sure, and they put in one very high bid to get started, and no one else comes in, and that bid wins. Well, there was some scrambling last year, I understand, when I was not the advisor, to figure out what to do with that, and I think appropriately the decision was made to delay that to a later tranche and have it filled, but there are other possibilities to consider in terms of putting some type of bandwidth around what's an acceptable range, rather than saying, it feels good, or it seems too high. So that should be considered.
Very, very good points. Thank you. Madam Acting Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the Commission adopt the report from Dr. Ledzelter along with the recommendation that he has made and explained here.
I second.
Okay. I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa,
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
Commissioner Gray,
Aye.
and I vote aye, and the motion carries. And many thanks to Mr. Geller and Dr. Ledzelter for their presentation.
Thank you.
Next matter is number 2. It's in the matter of the petition of the Public Service Commission staff and Delaware Division of the Public Advocate to establish a regulation for distribution system investment plans for Delaware electric and natural gas utilities. We've got proposed order 10364, and we need to have, is it Mr. Geddes who has this, or am I mistaken? Ms. Pope?
Yes, Ms. Pope. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Summer Pope on behalf of staff. For your consideration today is proposed order 10364, which would reopen the regulation section 3007 and publish the attached amendments to the regulation in the April 2024 edition of the Registrar. This proposed order also authorizes staff to perform necessary non-substantive edits to conform to the edits in Exhibit A, so it's compliant with the Office of the Registrar's preferred style. Additionally, this orders the Commission Secretary to publish notice before April 5th and notes that a public hearing will be held on May 1st, 2024. It also provides that for written comments to be heard at the Commission meeting on May 1st, those written comments must be submitted by April 30th, 2024. The Commission will also accept comments otherwise until May 17th, 2024. Again, staff believes that reopening the regulation to make amendments can assist in accomplishing the intended goal of the regulations to begin with and to reduce the cost of distribution system improvements through the collaboration with Delmarva, the only EDC in Delaware, staff, and the DPA. Staff thanks the Commission for their consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. Commissioners, first of all, I guess, any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Correa.
Chair Winslow, do you want to hear from Brian Jordan from DP&L?
I think that'd probably be a good idea. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Mr. Jordan, also, while you have the floor, I understand you have someone with you that you'd like to introduce to the commission, so would you please do that as well?
Good afternoon, Chair Winslow. I think the best laid plans of mice and men oft go awry because the counselor who was going to be here was unable to make it. She had a meeting that got bumped up, so we're going to try to get her back in here for another meeting. It was not the co-counsel that I had attend to my last hearing. She is busy at school today. But that said, good afternoon, Brian Jordan, on behalf of Delmarva Power and Light Company. Thank you. The only comment I was going to make is that Delmarva had filed a letter February 14th, 2024, where it made two requests. One, to delay publication until after Delmarva was able to submit its own alternative form of rate-making regulation and to assign these to a hearing examiner. Since filing the letter, Delmarva has had conversations with staff and the DPA and is withdrawing both requests, and therefore the letter that it filed February 14th, 2024 can be rescinded and does not need to be considered by the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Is there anyone else, any other parties that wish to speak? Commissioners, do you have any questions of the parties? May we have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve proposed order number 10364 as presented.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve proposed order number 10364? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Number 3 is in the matter of the application of Delmarva Power and Light Company for an increase in electric base rates. This is the proposed order number 10393. And of course, we have the alternative order proposed, which is number 10394. And I assume we'll hear from Ms. Pope or Mr. Geddes on this to start it off.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Summer Pope on behalf of staff. For your consideration today is proposed order number 10393, denying staff's December 11th, 2023 petition for interlocutory appeal. As you will recall, on January 10th, 2024, the Commission heard from both staff and the settling parties on the issue. The Commission determined that staff had not met its burden under Section 1001 2.16.1 of the admin code to show that extraordinary circumstances necessitated, thank you to everybody in the crowd who corrected that, a prompt decision by the commission to prevent substantial injustice or detriment to the public if staff's appeal was not granted. Staff believes that proposed order 10393 conforms with the form of order the commission generally accepts in all matters, which routinely are drafted by your staff and are only commented on by other parties. Additionally, the proposed order reflects the record. Staff believes that there is sufficient information included in the proposed order and respectfully requests the commission adopt it. In contrast, proposed order number 10394 departs from the general commission form of order. It specifically includes notations to the record and includes quotations from staff counsel and quotes in ordering paragraph number 2. Staff does not believe this is a necessary inclusion to the proposed form of order or an order to which the commission should enter into. Including this type of information would be for the commission to depart from the form of order it generally accepts, the form of order which staff generally prepares, and the type of, if it is to be included, information regarding the record as provided in paragraph 2 is generally within the whereas clauses above. Further, there's no indication that other commissioners agreed with the comments or information included in paragraph 2 of the alternate form of order. Thus, staff does not include it. In any event, the record was incorporated into staff's proposed form of order in 10393. Whereas clauses generally explain the reasoning behind commission's decisions, and the ordering paragraphs constitute the decision, not expand upon it. Accepting proposed order 1094 as presented is unnecessary, redundant, and would depart from how the commission generally operates in the issuance of its orders. Staff believes that proposed order 10393 is appropriate and respectfully asks that it be accepted and that proposed order 10394 be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pope. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. Regina Iori, Deputy Attorney General for the Delaware Division of the Public Advocate, and I will be speaking on behalf of the joint respondents. And IBEW's counsel has authorized me to represent that he supports the joint respondents' proposed form of order as well. If I miss anything, Mr. Jordan is here to back clean up for me. Now, we're here today regarding which order the commission will enter to memorialize its deliberations at the January 10th meeting, at which the commission denied staff's petition for interlocutory review of evidentiary rulings that the hearing examiner made at a December 4th public evidentiary hearing on a proposed settlement to which all parties except staff have agreed. Staff's proposed form of order simply notes that the commission found that staff had not met its burden to establish extraordinary circumstances requiring a prompt decision by the commission to prevent substantial injustice or detriment to the public interest, and denied staff's petition. The alternative proposed form of order submitted by the joint respondents says this too, but it also contains the explanation that Chairman Winslow gave for rejecting staff's petition, and thus the support for the commission's conclusion that staff had not met its burden. So when staff circulated a proposed form of order for the parties' review that did not include those comments, the joint responders observed that. And we asked staff counsel about that, and we got the following reply, I quote, "Staff does not believe the chairman's comments should be included as an ordering paragraph, as there is no indication in the transcript that the other commissioners specifically agreed with those comments," end quote. Now, as my mentor, Mr. Geddes, used to tell me frequently, the commission only acts by written order. He used to tell you that a lot, too. And I have drafted plenty of orders for the commission where one commissioner commented and the others were silent, but we included the commenting commissioner's comments, as the rationale for the commission's action, even though no other commissioner specifically said, "I agree." Staff counsel has drafted plenty of those kinds of orders, too. The proposed form of order that the joint respondents have submitted for your consideration contains the explanation that Chairman Winslow gave for concluding that staff had not met its burden of proof. So if the rest of the commissioners agree with the chairman, the commission is adopting that explanation, even though the rest of you never explicitly said so during deliberations that you agreed with the chairman's explanation. Now, you have done this before. Let me give you an example of when you adopted an order containing reasoning that you never discussed during your deliberations. And that was Regulation Docket 49 a couple of years ago, specifically with respect to community energy facilities. And I know we would all like to forget that, but I am quoting from the transcript of the January 26th, 2022 oral argument on the proposed regulations. And this argument was actually on the proposed form of order. In that docket, then Staff Counsel Bill O'Brien circulated a proposed form of order that contained all sorts of explanations for why the commission was rejecting the DPA's proposed changes to the regulations. The commission had not discussed, let alone mentioned, any of these explanations during its deliberations. On pages 940 and 941 of the transcript, then Staff Counsel Mr. O'Brien told the commission, quote, "Staff readily acknowledges that the commissioner's individual statements from the transcript of the November 17th hearing do not specify the rationale for your vote, and yet the proposed written order has plenty of record support laid out in the order. So the legal question for you today is whether the support you provide for your decision in your written decision must be limited to what the individual commissioners said during oral deliberations on the matter," end quote. As an aside, I would note that if you review that entire transcript, not many commissioners said anything during the deliberations in that matter. So in that docket, Staff Counsel took a different position than the one Staff Counsel is taking now with respect to what should be in an order. There, Staff Counsel said no, the support for an order isn't limited to what individual commissioners said during oral deliberations, and he gave several reasons why not. On pages 970 and 71, Commissioner Drexler said that the additional explanation that staff included in the order, which the commission never said, helped explain the order, and she did not consider them post hoc rationalizations, as the DPA called them. The rest of the commissioners didn't say anything about this issue either, but after Commissioner Drexler spoke, you voted unanimously to enter the order that Staff Counsel proposed and to reject the one that the DPA proposed. In this case, staff is in the same position as the DPA was in Reg 49. Staff is arguing that the commission as a whole didn't explicitly accept Chairman Winslow's explanations during your deliberations. But no commissioner took issue with Chairman Winslow's explanations, and the vote taken at that meeting was unanimous to deny staff's petition. I would also note that the Superior Court recently remanded a matter to this commission because it had not explained why it had reached its decision other than to say precedent. Chairman Winslow's explanation is an attempt to comply with the Superior Court's instructions to provide explanations for the commissioner's decisions. Now, with respect to a general form of order, there is no general form of order for interlocutory appeals because each one depends on its own facts. And just because there may be a general form of order does not mean that the commission is wedded to it forever and ever and can never change its form of order. So that, we think, elevates form over substance. What should be in the order is the commission's decision and what it relied on to reach that decision. So in conclusion, the joint respondents and IBEW respectfully request the commission to enter their proposed form of order which explains why the commission concluded that staff had not met its burden of proof. And we thank the commission for its consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Iori.
Chairman, if I may,
Is there anyone else?
as I'll let Mr. Bryan go or Mr. Jordan go first if he'd like.
Thank you.
Okay, that's why, if there's any other parties who want to make, okay, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. Brian Jordan on behalf of Delmarva Power and Light Company. And first, I will say that Delmarva adopts all of the reasoning that Ms. Iori just put on the record on why the Commission should not adopt proposed order 10393 and should adopt 10394. The only thing I would add is on the back end of Ms. Iori's comment, we need to recognize that an interlocutory appeal is an extraordinary matter. It upends the regular process of decision and appeal. It jumps the interlocutory appeal in front of everything, and the regulation recognizes that. It requires extraordinary circumstances. And from Delmarva's perspective, when a regulation is that explicit, those extraordinary circumstances need to be spelled out in the order. That's what the proposed order in paragraph number 2 does. It's necessary to create a full record so that any reviewing court also has the benefit of what the Commission was thinking and the reasons for its decision. Only proposed order 10394 provides that. Proposed order number 10393 does not, and therefore Delmarva urges the Commission to adopt proposed order number 10394. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Ms. Pope?
Thank you, Chairman. Staff would just like to note that staff generally prepares all of the proposed orders on behalf of the Commission. With that being said, we follow a certain guideline where we explain things in the whereas clauses and the ordering paragraphs followed by the clause order what the Commission's decision is. If we depart from that precedent of how the form of order generally is, staff needs to be aware of that. Or, in the alternative, if the parties who are filing applications and dockets disagree with staff's proposed form of orders, then staff suggests that those parties start writing their own orders to propose to the Commission. Thank you.
Chairman Winslow, may I
Ms.
respond briefly?
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Does your side of the table have any objection to moving that which Ms. Pope says offends the state's or the staff's structural opinion of orders? Would you have any objection to moving that part from the order section up to the whereas section?
Well, it would still need to, the ordering paragraphs would still need to explain why you ruled as you did. The whereas sections just generally set forth procedural history, how we got to where we did, and the ordering paragraphs explain what the Commission is doing and why. So without seeing a draft of said order, I don't know that I can say yes or no to that question.
Well, is there any time problem with pushing this off to the next meeting and allowing the parties to get together and talk about that issue?
I don't think so. I would suggest that it's something that could have been raised earlier and addressed earlier.
Well, sometimes those things happen and we don't necessarily think of it until it comes to a meeting, and then we discuss it like this and try to resolve it. Commissioner, I'm sorry, Ms. Pope, did you have something else to say, or can you answer that question as well?
Is the question whether there's a time issue?
The first question, whether you all can discuss this matter and try to resolve the differences between what's in which part of the order.
Yes, Chairman Winslow, we would be happy to do so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
this is Commissioner Gray.
Yeah, just a second, Commissioner Gray.
Yep.
Ms. Pope, I don't doubt what you said, and I'm just trying to think to myself about the orders we've had in the past. But my experience in life is that ordinarily it is hereby ordered page is it's really brief and basically disposes of what happens below or what happened before without a whole lot of explanation, and most of the explanation precedes that. That's just my general recollection of practicing law and what orders look like. Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask Ms. Pope, this seems for me more of a form than substance issue as we discuss it right now. But my question is, if you looked at order number 94 and the elements discussed in the ordering section, have you, in order number 93, captured each and every one of those substantive points in the whereas clauses yet?
They are not captured in the whereas clauses. Order 93 does incorporate the record, though. So, you know, these points are in there, but they're not specifically pointed out. Like, the commission seems like they're willing to do so in the whereas clauses.
Ms. Iori appears as though she has a comment. Yes?
I do. I'm sorry. With all due respect, you cannot incorporate the entire record of this case by reference into this order. The entire record of this case involves 60-some exhibits, thousands of pages of transcript, etc. So you can't incorporate that by reference into this order and
Ms.
have it make any sense whatsoever.
There was no intent to do so, Ms. Iori. I was simply asking the question in terms of reconciliation between 94 and 95 in the way of form, whether 93 had captured the elements of the discussion in 94.
I wasn't suggesting, Commissioner Gray, that you were doing that. I was responding to staff counsel's statement that the record is incorporated by reference in order number 10393.
Okay, I think my question has been answered, and I think that the chair makes a very good recommendation, and it sounds as though all parties are willing to take another stab at getting the form as well as the substance reconciled for a future meeting. No further comments, Mr. Chair.
This is Commissioner Drexler. I just have a comment, and that is that, you know, during our discussions back, I think on January 10th at the meeting, you know, I did concur. I know that I made some comments as well, and I did concur with your comments. So the discussion about whether comments that Chairman Winslow made that we may or may not have agreed with, I happen to have concurred with those. Therefore, this does represent, those comments do represent, you know, the way I voted and why I voted that way as well. And I do understand that all of this information is officially in the record. But I don't know that removing paragraph 2 or not having the information in paragraph 2, again, as Commissioner Gray said, changes anything. I don't object to having that in. And I also feel that if there's a way to get together and make one order that everybody agrees upon, it would make a lot of sense as well. So thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, final comment for Commissioner Gray, and I think it speaks to a point that Ms. Iori brought to the table. I do remember the Superior Court sending back information looking for the rationale for some of our decisions.
Well, my record, of course, I read both of the orders, and it appeared to me that myself and counsel for staff were accurately quoted. However, now that I think about it, the one item that I don't recall seeing in the order, and it might be in there, I just don't recall, is I believe a comment I made, and one thing that was sort of different about this entire thing than a usual case is that staff or counsel for one of the settling parties was in opposition to staff's observation that there was not a just and reasonable classification as part, which was part of their exhibits. And that's a little unusual to have an opposing counsel or a counsel to the settling document who represents the class in issue. So would Ms. Iori, is that in your order?
With all due respect, Chairman Winslow, I'm not sure that you did say that. I went through the transcript and wrote down what you had said. I believe Mr. Jordan has a response as well.
Chair Winslow, if I recall correctly, I think that discussion was more provided to the commission to show that, you know, the parties might have a disagreement about certain things, but they had reached a settlement agreement on, you know, overall. I don't think it was intended to show that there was some sort of discrepancy between the settling parties.
Yes, as between the
No. I didn't mean it was a discrepancy between the settling parties. All I mean is that the staff's attorney was bringing up an issue that that the settling parties had obviously resolved within the whole package settlement. And I thought that was significant. I thought to myself, if I didn't articulate it, that was an important consideration. But if I didn't mention it as part of my comments on the record, then it's not part of the record, although it's obviously part of the record in as much as the settling parties are known, and the party who does not want to settle is also known, and I think that's consistent with what I was thinking anyway. Okay, so I'll make the motion that this matter be rescheduled to the next hearing to give the parties an effort to resolve the differences, and if not, we'll resolve it for them at the next meeting. Is there a second, please?
Second the motion.
I'm sorry, did you say you second the motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa,
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
Commissioner Gray,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Number 3 is in the matter of application of Delmarva Power and Light Company for an increase in electric base rates. Proposed order, apologize, 4, in the matter of the application of Viola Water Delaware, Inc. for a general increase in rates. Proposed order number 10386. And I'm not sure who we have for Viola in this. Viola, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Winslow. It's Pam Scott here on behalf of Veolia Water Delaware, Inc. Good afternoon, Commissioners. On April 20...
My apologies, Ms.
That's
My
all right.
apologies. I should have known that.
No problem. On April 27th, 2023, Veolia Water Delaware, Inc. filed its application to increase its water rates, and subsequently thereto docket number 230598 was opened, and hearing examiner Glenn Kenton was designated as the hearing examiner in this docket. After extensive discovery in this matter, the parties have reached a settlement in principle, and therefore at this time we would ask that we filed a motion requesting that the designation of the hearing examiner be revoked so that we can then proceed to present the proposed settlement directly to the commissioners for their ultimate review and hopefully approval. The order that's before you today would, in essence, order number 10386 would, in essence, grant the motion that we have filed as staff, Veolia, and the public advocate, would also proceed to require that we provide the public notice in connection with presenting this matter to the commissioners at your March 27th meeting. So we would ask that you approve the order as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Summer Pope on behalf of staff. Staff agrees with Ms. Scott and respectfully requests that the Commission accept the proposed order. Staff would like to thank Veolia and the DPA for their thoughtful approach towards reaching the settlement agreement and looks forward to presenting it for Commission consideration at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. I assume that's all who are speaking. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I think Gina Iori would like to speak, sir.
Oh, really, again? Come on, I'm sorry, Ms. Iori, I apologize.
The good thing you're not here to see the
Please
look
speak.
on my face.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Gina Iori, Deputy Attorney General for the Public Advocate. The Public Advocate has nothing to add to the recitation of where we are and how we got there. But I do want to thank both Veolia and staff for an acceptable resolution to this particular matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Now, has everyone spoken now?
I believe so, Chair Winslow.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Drexler?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve proposed order number 10386.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve 10386? Hearing none. Commissioner Correa?
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway?
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler?
Aye.
Commissioner Gray?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next is the hearing schedule, and that is free of any items. And we have a few administrative items. Mr. Hardigan.
Thank you, Chairman Winslow. I did want to formally welcome Dennis Kelleher, who is our new temporary Deputy Attorney General, taking some things off of Summer's plate, which I'm sure she appreciates. And we're happy to see Dennis again. You may recall he was with us previously and had enough and went over to the another division within DOJ, but happy to have him back. Our next meeting will be March 6th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hardigan, and welcome, Mr. Kelleher. Thank you for coming on board. Our next meeting is, as he says, March 6th, and we'll see you all then. Thank you so much. Meeting is adjourned.